Hello and welcome back to part 3 of this first 24 hours guide for LOTR Rise to War on the Season 5, playing as Mr. Cuddles. As you can see, there's been a little bit of tile taking going on around us. As Gundabad, we've got a Witch King that's very close to us. Not a bad Witch King either, to be honest, for gear-wise, but hopefully there won't be too much of that. It's quite close to where I spawned, so it'll hopefully just die down and we'll probably play nice for the first few days of the season, maybe. In this video, we'll look into a little bit of things like scouting, introducing tier 2 troops, 60 tiles, and beyond that a little bit. We'll also have a quick look at things like the type of commander that we're looking for by scouting on these tiles to give us the best possible benefits earlier on with sort of low troop losses and things like that. So heading straight into it then, you can see in a second how I skill Gandalf at this point in the season. I know some people do go into fleeting movements. I don't like anything with percentage chance earlier on. I know it can be useful, but I go the other way. So we're on to chapter 11 finally, because we've got commanders above level 13. It's really important to keep going through your chapters. Those first 24 hours, the more chapters you can unlock, the more tiles you can have, the more resources you can have, the further ahead you get in the game. So it's really important to just be aware of what those chapter unlocks are. I should mention really at that point that obviously the resources you gather by unlocking these chapters are also really important at this stage, and they do help you get further forward. We've got about enough troops now for a couple of armies, but what I'd really like to go into at this point is scouting and the importance of it. So as soon as I start hitting 60 tiles, I will start scouting. So the key to it is to make sure you can build it up, and it's a pretty easy method. If you can make sure you have a troop queue which is free just for a little period of time, so you can make a small number like so 16 there, or 8, or whatever I can get it down to, I will then make sure that that line in my barracks is completely empty, which allows me to just produce those 8 to scout a tile. So my losses stay minimal. And this benefits you in both ways really. So you're not losing many troops to scout the tile in the first place. 8 troops is nothing, but also it can save you 300-400 troops if you're hitting the right tiles at this stage of the game, which is a massive boost to the resources that you have for troops later in the game. As you'll see now, it can be a little bit of a faff. You're placing troops into commanders that you wouldn't normally, but there is time in between, and you might be able to put them on your main armies. But other than that, you're just filling up another commander in your barracks to sort that out. And then once the 8 troops are made, you're going to equip them to a different commander who would normally just be a paffer. We've all got 5 or 6 common minimum at this point. Obviously, most people have got more, so it's just the case if you fit them to the commander and you send them at the tile just to see what army's behind it. With the reinforcing times that you get from here, with the walking speeds that you get from here, there's no way you're never going to not have time to hit that tile, because you're always pretty close to yourself at this point in the season. So we're looking at taking 60s at this stage. The first one, I think this will be, and I suspect I will scout many different tiles just to make sure it's the right one for me, because stamina is low at this point. Meanwhile, our secondary comms, if they've got stamina, will be off looking at other tiles, probably lower value tiles, the ones that you're not losing too many troops on, so the 30s and 40s at this stage will be good. That kind of leads us into a tile makeup at this point, so you'll just see it flash up on the screen in a second. So out of those 37 tiles, what we have, it will be on there now. So there's bits and bobs. We've got some 10s, we've got 1 tile, there's plenty of 40s and 30s and things like that. So first one we saw was Sharku. And while this is sort of going on, the kind of armies that you're looking for are your Sharkus, your Maltoks, even your gore bags at this stage. The sort of ones that I'll be trying to avoid are your Grimmers, anything really with trolls I try and avoid. They're a little bit tougher. So, the key to scouting tends to be early game if you can. Avoid trolls, avoid Grimmer, and then, the rest you sort of take a bit of a punt on. Including the dreaded Yusra, Queen of the Dragoons, who is another nice easy comm to take on early on. You can see from the video as it's running in the background, we've actually managed to go onto a second scout using the same 8 troops, because the rest recovered in the apothecary. So for those 8 troops, we'll probably get 3 scouts out of it, which I just think is really beneficial. The losses that it saves you is quite incredible. Okay, so we're throwing the 3rd scout out there now, just to see what is actually around us. Obviously, we only want to have to hit the tile once if we can help it. We do need the 60 tile for a chapter unlock, so we're probably a little bit early. However, it is about getting through those chapters as fast as you can, and with us sort of having 2 armies now, you can afford to lose a few troops. So we've got a choice of a Shavrat, a Sharku, and that was Dwalin beating a Gorbag quite well, so he'll move up to 40 tiles at that point because that 30 was way too easy for him. So we'll see in a second that we do take on the 60. It is a little bit overpowering for us as well, and I don't mind that. Like I say, we are trying to get through the chapters as fast as possible, so here we'll give it a go. So as you can see, the 60 has hit us pretty hard, but we did need it. So we will then move troops onto Gimli, as you'll see, rather than Dwalin, and we'll finish the tile off again. That hits us hard. Not too fussed though, like we said before, because the buffs in the first 24 hours do make most of these troops recover, so it's more about just keeping the stamina in your main comms just to make sure you get all those hits in. So just coming up on screen now will be the report, and I would say this is what I don't like to see too often. So I would say this probably was a mistake, but it was to unlock a chapter, so it is what it is. That is what I would say substantial losses at this stage of the game, but we could afford them. So again, message and the theme of the video so far is bravery. That is a brave tile take to make sure you are moving through your chapters, getting the chapter resources that you need and moving forward. I will speed up the apothecary again just to make sure I've got some troops to run 1.5 to 2 armies, and Gimli goes in and takes the tile now. Again, it's heavy losses from Gimli, but at this point I'm more about having the stamina to continue this journey. So speaking of that, we've moved forward a little bit now in the video, and we've actually got 360 powered tiles at this point, and they're a lot easier for Gandalf to take, mainly because we started to introduce tier 2 troops at this point. So this is the point that I was talking about in the previous video, where we run tier 2 troops alongside tier 1 troops. As you can see, there's 3 there, and tiles have moved up to 58 of 61, but we must be dropping a 1 tile, I would hazard a guess. Stamina's kept really low still, as you can see. We've used up both. It's really important to use up as much stamina as you can on the first day. I am one of those people that wake up in the middle of the night and will move 5 or 6 times on the first day, just to make sure I get the maximum amount of hits, with it sort of recovering 1 movement every half an hour. So the theme continues really, so we keep building buildings, we're upgrading attributes as fast as we can, trying to get the main hall up as quick as we can, barracks and things like that, and conscription posts to get those extra cheap troop queues in. While also making sure troops are building in the background, whether they be tier 1 or tier 2, it's not so much of an issue at this point, but I will keep infilling with tier 1 troops. Tier 2s just make 60s that little bit easier. And I just want to continue the conversation about scouting. So you'll see for the rest of the videos, pretty much, I will scout 90% of the tiles for the rest of the 24 hours. And ultimately, you know, you've got the time to do that with you only being able to move at this point once every half an hour. You can pick the right tile, and I'll do it through 60s, 90s, 130s and into 150s, and obviously I continue that into my research into 200s when we get beyond the first day. If you are full on troop queues because you're actually building all your troop lines at once, then scouting becomes a little bit more pedantic, probably is the right word for it, and you do have to chop and change troops. You'll see it a lot where I move 100 troops onto a certain commander and move some onto another one, just so I can get the lowest number of troops on a certain commander to scout. Is it a pain? Yes, it is. You do have to flick around and do bits and bobs and move 30 troops here, 30 troops there, but the troops it saves you over the 24 hours is incredible, so it's definitely worthwhile doing, and like I say, you have got time to do it in between your movements. So before sort of throwing in a bit of a conclusion for this video and how important scouting is, and I will reiterate that again, and sort of the commanders that you can hit and those kind of things, and obviously the gameplay is just going on a little bit in the background there. I just wanted to sort of link back to a previous video. So as you'll see in a second, I go into my fellowship store and I get a 3-hour buff because I've picked up 500 contributions. So for the next 3 hours, my wood production is higher than it should be, and that is the value of picking up the contribution. You do get that little bit of an extra buff. You are beating other people to it in your fellowship, and you will get ahead of them in that sort of premise while helping them, so it is worthwhile doing. There's another one in there that hopefully I'll pick up a little bit later on for ore. So just to wrap up this third video then, I cannot say the importance of scouting more than I already have. I will reiterate it again. I know some people are lazy and they don't scout and they hope for the best. That's fine if that's what you want to do, but if you want to get as far ahead as you can in those first 24 hours, you have to scout tiles. Maybe not to the extent that I do. I do scout a lot, and I will, like I say, scout 90% of all tiles now for the rest of the day. If you've got the time to do that and throw 2 or 3 scouts out at a time when you want to take a tile, that's great. Or you might get lucky and it might be the first scout that hits and it's the right sort of commander, but it's definitely worthwhile. So my message is, please do it. The kind of commanders that you're looking for, again, just to sort of repeat, are your Yusras, your Maltoks, your Gorbags, your Sharkus, your Shagrats, and even Khaldun. He's a great PvP commander, but an easy one to take down on a tile, so definitely get involved if that's the case. As for tiles to avoid at this point, like I say, I will avoid trolls pretty much exclusively until I know that I can beat them quite comfortably when they become underwhelming on the tiles. So other than that, sort of commander wise, I won't really try Sestaro. I think that's how he's pronounced. And also, of course, Grimmer. I don't think anyone really likes to try Grimmer at this stage of the season. I think that's pretty common and everyone knows. So okay, I hope to see you next time. I hope this has been useful. We'll probably take some 90s and maybe go into 130s next time if we're lucky with the way we were sort of progressing forward. So it'll be sort of towards the back end. So if in doubt, as always, enjoy yourself and always follow your nose.